Hello, this is John Underwood, Technical Evangelist at ThreeWill, and today I'm going to do a brief demonstration that shows several SharePoint concepts. Among the things we're going to cover, we're going to learn how to use a lookup column in order to simulate some master detail behavior, and then we're going to look at connected web parts as a convenient way of presenting this information. Now, I created this video on behalf of a particular customer that just needed a little help in getting started on this, and I figured along the way I might as well turn it into something that we would put on the ThreeWill YouTube channel, just because this is something that other users might need as well. So a couple of disclaimers about this. First of all, understand that I'm targeting users here, not developers. Second thing to note is that I'm doing the demonstration on SharePoint 2007 instead of 2010. And the reason for that is the customer in question is still using 2007. If you're on a 2010 environment and you're trying to do this same kind of thing, I think you'll find that you're able to adapt and make your way through it. It's not all that different in 2010. So with that, let me begin the demonstration. As you'll notice on my screen, I've created a team site, and what I'd like to do is show you this process by maybe creating a little sample application. So let's pretend that we work in a research department, and for every research project that we do, we have some kind of entry in a list that records some basic details about the project, and then we create 0, 1, or many supporting documents that need to be linked to that. So the first thing I'm going to do is navigate to all site content. And then once I've navigated to the All Site Content page, I'm going to click the Create link. I'm going to start by creating a custom list, so I'll select that option. And then I'm going to name this list Research Items. And in the real world, of course, I would want to provide a useful description. In this example, I'll just leave that blank. Now, in addition to the title column that it already has, we need one other column. So I'm going to go to the List Settings page, and I'll create this new column. And I'm going to name the column Case ID. We'll just say that for every research project we do, there's a case ID that's issued, and we use that as a unique identifier. So I'm going to make this a required field, and we'll say that all of our case IDs are going to be 20 characters or less. Now, once I've added this column, I'm going to do one other little thing here. I'm going to take the title and repurpose it as a description. And then let me add a couple of demonstration items. So I'll go in and add a new item. We'll say that this first item is to research numbers for a business plan. And its case ID is 2012-005. And then one more sample item. Let's say that we're going to do some research around census data. And this one's case ID will be 2012-098. Right, so I've got a couple of sample items. What I'd like to do now is go create a library that's going to store some documents that are associated with these different items. So once again, I'll navigate to the All Site Content page. And then once I arrive there, I'll click the Create link. This time what I'm going to create is a document library, and I'll name this Research Documents. I'll also turn on versioning, since as we update these documents, we might want to be able to track prior versions. Now, once I've clicked Create, I'm going to need to do a similar thing here in that I want to change the library settings, and in particular, add a column. So I'll go down and click on the Create column, and I'm going to call this column Case ID as well. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of a lookup column, what you might be thinking here is, well, we'll have them enter the case ID, and then we'll somehow be able to match between the two. Well, while we might count on our users to do that, the reality is they would probably make some kind of data entry error sooner or later. So in order to solve that, we use a lookup column. Literally, we're going to take the case IDs that are available to us from our research items list and place those numbers in the appropriate row here. So each document will be married back to a particular research item. So I'm going to make this a required field, and then I'll need to tell it where the data is going to come from. So in this case, it's going to come from the research items list, and in particular, the case ID is the number that we're interested in. So once we've made those changes, I'll click OK. And then I'll navigate back to this library, and I've got several sample documents that I've already prepared that I'll upload at this point. Notice that when I upload, it's going to prompt me for the case ID. This first one will go to 2012-005, and then I'll put in a title. Now I'll repeat the process for 2 more documents. Notice that my last document will be associated with a different case ID. Alright, so at this point I do have some useful information, but where this will really get powerful is when I begin to present this information using a web part page. So the first step in doing that is to once again navigate to the All Site Content page, and then I'm going to create another library for holding my pages. I'll just name this library Pages. Then once I've created my Pages library, I'll go back to View All Site Content and click Create one last time. And then under Web Pages, I'm going to choose Web Part Page. Now, when you create a web part page, it needs to know 3 things. What do you want to name the page? What layout do you want? And where do you want to store it? So for the name, I'll just put in Case Summary. For the layout, I'm going to use the header, left column, and body layout. And then the document library, I'll put it in the Pages library that I just created. And then I'll click Create. Now, there are a lot of things you could do to kind of beautify or enhance this page. I'm just going for the basics so that we can see this functionality in action. So I'll start by going to the left column, and I'll click Add a Web Part. And then the web part that I want to add here is the one that will show me my research items. So I'll select Research Items and then click Add. Next, I'll go to the body of the document, and I'll click Add a Web Part. And in this case, what I want to show are the research documents. I'll add that. And then once I've added it, I'm going to go ahead and make one subtle change. I'll choose Modify Shared Web Part. And then I'm going to choose the view of all documents. And then click OK. Now, if you're not familiar with this process, what I'm going to do next is something called a web part connection. Essentially, I'm going to allow one web part to give another web part a piece of data. And the idea here is that in doing this, a user can select a particular research project and see just the documents that are associated with that. So in order to do that, I'll go over and edit my Research Items web part. I'll choose Connections, and then Provide Row 2, and then Research Documents. So the first thing it needs to know is what column are we going to filter on. Case ID is obviously the answer there. And then we'll need that same column in the receiving web part. And then we'll click Finish. Then to complete the task, I'll exit Edit Mode. And then notice what happens. If I do not have an item selected, then all items show from all libraries. However, if I select a particular research item, notice now Research Documents will filter and show only the documents with that particular case ID. Same for my census data. If I select that, then you'll see just the documents that are associated with this. Now, obviously, there's a lot more you can do with web part connections, but hopefully this will get you started and just show you the power of combining web part connections and the use of a lookup column between a list and a library.